If you've been exposed to recording drums in your home studio, some side effects may include thin snares, flammy kicks, weak toms, angry neighbors, and more. Now, I can't do much about the angry neighbor situation, but in today's video, I'm going to show you how phase aligning your drum tracks can help to give you a big and punchy sound. So the first thing I do when opening a drum session is phase align the multiple mics. Now, phase alignment is different from time alignment. With time alignment, you're adjusting the timing of your instruments so that they are better locked in the pocket with the metronome. With phase alignment, you're adjusting the phase relationship of multiple tracks so the actual waveforms are aligned. The reason your drum tracks are out of phase is because multiple mics on a drum kit each pick up sound at slightly different times. For instance, your snare mic is going to capture the sound of you hitting the snare before your overhead mics are going to pick that up. And that's just because that microphone is closer to the snare. When these mics are out of phase, you get phase cancellation, which can eliminate the low end and the fullness of your recorded tracks. By putting these mics in phase, it results in a full-bodied and more three-dimensional sound from your drum recordings. So there's a few ways you could do this. You could use a time adjuster within your DAW, and most if not all DAWs have some variation of this, and it simply allows you to type in the adjustment number either in samples or milliseconds to adjust the timing of your tracks. You can also use plugins. Many plugins have a phase reverse button that inverts the phase of the track. This can even be a quick and easy way just to check to see if your tracks are in phase with each other, and sometimes it fixes the phase issues. There are also many plugins that are created solely for the purpose of aligning the phase of multiple mics. However, I've always preferred manually aligning the tracks. It doesn't require you to purchase any additional plugins. You can do this in any DAW, and it allows you to visually see their exact phase relationship. So here's our drum tracks, and let's take a listen. So that's not a bad sounding drum recording and everything looks aligned, but let's zoom in and take a closer look. When we zoom in, you can see that these tracks are out of phase with each other. To get everything phase aligned, I like to start with a snare and find a big snare hit that's mostly isolated from the rest of the tracks. So let's zoom in on this snare and check it out. So right away, we can see that the snare bottom polarity is inverted. This means that the waveform is moving in the opposite direction of the snare top track, so let's flip the phase on that. I'm going to solo and play these two snare tracks on loop just so you can hear what it sounds like flipping the phase. So just by inverting the phase, there's a slight difference in the sound, but not much yet. We still have to align these waveforms. Let's A/B compare those. I'm going to undo everything I did so you can hear the track in its original form and the track with the snare bottom flipped. Just aligning the snare alone does make a bit of a difference. Although it's subtle, once you do this to the entire kit, you're going to notice a huge change in the overall drum sound. After aligning the two snare tracks, I like to go each track and align that same transient with the snare track. We're going to further adjust the toms and kick afterwards, but for my starting point, I just like to get everything in line. So now that these are aligned, let's take a listen. While these are playing back, I'm going to quickly undo and redo my moves so you can hear the difference between the two. So that's a huge difference. Even if you don't have a subwoofer, you can hear how much low end comes back by simply phase aligning these tracks. Now let's jump up to our kick drum and find an isolated kick hit. So these are pretty close to being in phase with one another. I would probably just slide that kick out track back just a little bit. Let's solo out these kick drum tracks and compare the changes. So again, subtle, but I feel a little more low end with these aligned. Sometimes I'll align at the point where the waveform dips down. It may or may not sound better, but let's check it out and see. So that does have just a little bit more low end when aligning at the dip, so I'm good with that. Let's jump to aligning these kicks with the overheads. So this is going to be a little harder to see, but we can still see that kick transient right here. Because we align the overheads with the snare, the kick transient in each overhead is going to be slightly off from each other, so I'll typically put the kicks right in the middle of the two, and it's close enough to get us where we need to be. Actually, these kicks sound good where they're at, so I'm going to leave them. Last but not least, we're going to go to our toms. Here, you'll notice the same thing as the kicks and that the transient and the overhead tracks are slightly off from each other. That's because we aligned those overheads with the snare. Now, because I pan my toms hard left and hard right, I'm going to align each tom with its respective left and right overhead track. And that's it for phase alignment, so let's do a comparison of the before and after of the full drum kit. So definitely a huge difference. You notice it really more so on this beginning fill where the snares are cracking and the toms are hitting pretty hard. Let's just loop that really quick at the top one more time for you. So there you have it. Phase aligning your drums is going to put some big character back into your recorded drum tracks. So before you start reaching for any type of EQ, compression, or anything to craft the sound of your drums, first make sure they're in phase. It's going to help your drums to cut through the mix, and it's going to make it easier to get the sound that you hear in your head. Last but not least, if you want a guide that'll walk you through every step of the process from songwriting and recording up through mixing and mastering, you can download the roadmap to a radio-ready song absolutely free as my gift to you by going to FromZeroToStudio.com/roadmap and start improving how you're capturing and creating your music. That's all I've got for you today. Thank you so much for watching and subscribing. I'll see you on another video soon.